Welcome to session 3 of the Child-Friendly Space introductory training. In the last session, we talked about resilience promoting factors, and hopefully some of you were reminded of the factors in your life that boost your resilience and sort them out. We also asked you to think about what challenges you could meet when running a session in the child-friendly space. So a challenge that we thought about is how to calm children in distress. The Hopeful, Healthy and Happy Toolkit has both energizing and calming exercises that you can use with children. And sometimes if a child talks a lot and has a lot to say at inconvenient times, we can help them be quiet. And I'm going to demonstrate this now. So if a child is not aware of the impulse to speak before they speak, or if the children are talking a lot, there's an exercise that can help. It is also a fact that your mood improves when you're putting on a smile and you keep it for a time of maybe a minute. So I'll ask my colleague to put a pencil between the teeth and keep it there. This makes it difficult for my colleague to speak. And if she should want to speak, she will be reminded of it. And then knowing that there is this impulse to speak, because the lips will begin to move. And then her mood will increase.
So another exercise that you can do to help children feel calm if they're in distress is one that is in the Peer Center Wellbeing Guide. The exercise is called Hugging Yourself Calm. I would like you to do this exercise with me together as we continue to roll the video. So don't pause, but keep the video going and follow my instructions as I say them. So I'd like you to sit or stand in an upright position with both of your feet on the ground. Next, place your right hand, palm turning inwards, on your upper left arm below the shoulder or in the left armpit. Place your left hand on your upper right arm below the shoulder or again in the armpit. Take a firm grip of yourself and press gently and firmly inwards with both hands and give yourself a firm grip for around 5 seconds. Release the grip after approximately 5 seconds, and then we suggest to repeat this exercise at least 2 more times. So now we would like you to pause the video and think about how this exercise made you feel. If you're on your own, just reflect by yourself about how this exercise made you feel. Did it give you a feeling of confidence and security while you were hugging yourself? Or maybe you didn't feel any difference from before. If you're in a group, then discuss the different feelings that you experienced in trying out this exercise. At first, we encourage people to practice this exercise when they're not feeling distressed. And because this often makes it easier and also more effective to do this exercise when children are distressed and in times of need. So pause the video now and talk about how doing the exercise made you feel.
Another challenge that you could meet in the child-friendly space would be if unaccompanied and separated children come to the CFS. These children will require referral to Child Protection Services and will also need referral to Restoring Family Link Services of the National Society.
And now we're going to look at how to plan a session. So a session in a child-friendly space has 3 main components to it. The first one is about opening activities that we do. Then secondly is the main activity. And finally, closing activities. Usually a CFS session runs for about 1.5 to 2 hours long, and now we're going to discuss what's in each of these 3 areas. So firstly, the opening activity. This would take around 15 to 20 minutes. And in this part of the activity, the opening activity, we welcome the children, we open the session, we introduce everyone, and we set an environment where everyone feels safe and happy to participate.
Now the main activity or the main activities will be 40 to 60 minutes. So there you can select activities from the psychosocial themes for playing, learning, socializing and gaming. And these activities will help children gain knowledge and skills. And there could also be some time for free play. And in the end, there could be other fun child-friendly space activities.
And the third component of any child-friendly space is to close the activity. This takes around 15 to 20 minutes. And in this bracket of time, we close the activities and put away any materials. We come together and reflect on the day. Also, we thank the children for participating in the child-friendly space activities, and we say goodbye until next time.
There's an activity planning worksheet on page 14 and 15 in the activity catalog that makes planning a session easy. Here you can use one of the 7 themes from the activity catalog. You can also add additional exercises that you find useful and would be a good fit in your child-friendly space.
The worksheet also has space to note down the themes that you used within the child-friendly space. It has some boxes where you can put down the time that the activity should take, any materials that you might need or any special considerations or ways of setting up the space, adaptations that you might like to do to the activity, and the number or the names of the facilitators, or even the gender or other special characteristics that are required for the facilitator. You'll also note on the worksheet that there's a reflection area, and here there are guided questions that can help you reflect on how the session went and what could be adjusted for the future. You should also consider if any children needed extra support during the session, or if any referral for more specialised help was needed.
And now it's your turn to work on the planning worksheet. So if you're doing the session on your own, plan a session using one of the 7 themes and put it in the activity planning worksheet. You can find it in your workbook. Read through the planning notes for the following session. And if you're doing this training in a group, split into pairs or groups of 3. Plan a session using the activity planning worksheet, and you will take your point of departure in one of the 7 sessions in the activity catalog. Read through the planning notes for the next session, and then share your session with your teammates and seek their feedback. Let's talk about planning for future sessions. So when you're planning, the facilitators need to think not only about the needs that was found in the assessment, they also need to look at the skills and the competences children will need in times to come. A discussion in the team on what the situation will be for children in the months ahead and what children will need to learn to handle the situation ahead is very important. So let us give you an example of how this can be done from a setting where refugee children had to learn about handling an upcoming cyclone or hurricane season. So the assessment showed that in the coming months, children would need to know about cyclones or hurricanes, why they occur, and how they develop. They also needed to learn skills on how to secure the houses and themselves for the cyclone and hurricane season. They needed to be able to identify risks so that they would be able to protect themselves should they be caught in the hurricane or cyclone. Finally, they also needed to identify which places were safe when a cyclone or a hurricane was approaching. Another thing that we can think about in the child-friendly space and when planning is that it's also useful for the caregivers to know what the children are learning so that the caregivers can reinforce the learning outside of the child-friendly space. So as you can see, having such knowledge that we just went through and skills in react in the best way during a cyclone or hurricane season will build the resilience and increase the safety for children. So now we'd like you to pause the video. If you're working alone, think about what the situation might be in 2 months' time in your case study. Even though we may not be able to fully predict the situation, think about the knowledge, skills and competencies children would need to possess to be able to handle the coming times. How can you plan for some of this to be included in the child-friendly space? If you're in a group, do the same thing and also discuss it.
Welcome back, and now we're going to talk about psychoeducation. In session 2, we mentioned that children need to have age-appropriate information about their situation. We went over how to talk to children about war, and you worked on topics to discuss in a group for caregivers. In the 7 themes themselves, there are many elements of psychoeducation. So Ia, if I asked you about psychoeducation, what are some typical topics that we might want to provide psychoeducation on for children?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to go over what are natural reactions, what are normal reactions that you can expect after an emergency or after a distressing event. And then you could do the rights of children. You could also work on feelings, why we have them, and obviously how to manage feelings. Natural disasters, like we just covered, why they happen and what to do during a natural disaster would be a very good topic if you're in a disaster-prone area. And finally, think about maybe including something on international humanitarian law, what rules apply in a war, so in a way that's appropriate for children to know about.
Great. So these are some of the common topics that might come up. But what we want you to do now is to pause the video, and if you're doing the session on your own, make a list of the topics that children would need to know about in your case study or your context. Then pick one of these topics and write the main speaking points that you might use in talking to a group of children about the topic. Add any ideas you have for practical exercises that you could do to demonstrate the points of the psychoeducation. And if you're working in a group, then agree on the important topics that children would need to know in the future about the context that you used. Pick one of those topics and agree on the main points that you would use to talk to a group of children. Then, as a group, discuss the ideas for practical exercises to demonstrate the points of the psychoeducation.
Welcome back. We're now moving on to talking about how you can involve children in the daily life and the daily running of the child-friendly space. So first of all, I'd like to say that children from a very early age, they're quite competent and they can do a lot of things themselves that very often we as adults do for them. So think about it, a child can tie his or her own shoes, put on clothes. So don't do it if a child is able to do it by their own. So also ask children to help out with tasks which will help them be active and to be engaged and feel responsible. So if you are working for a longer period of time with the same group of children in the child-friendly space, this is a very crucial point because it makes them feel able to do stuff and it encourages their own sense of agency. Now we can think about what they can do.
There's quite a lot of things that children can actually do in the child-friendly space. For example, children can take the responsibility for welcoming each other. Children can design their own attendance sheets and they can complete them every time that they arrive. Children can also be responsible for getting out and putting away the equipment. They can also complete inventories or checklists that might be required to be done around the child-friendly space. And they can propose and they can design activities. Children are very creative. Children can also check on the conditions of the tent where they might be staying or equipment that might be being used, and they can record any problems that might be going on with toys or breakages. For example, they could have like a picture of a tent and colour some areas where there's damage on it. Other things that children can do as well include things like preparing the snacks or the drinks for each other. And they can monitor the amount of drinking water that's available, and they can also make requests for fill-ups if needed. Other things that children are really great at and we should involve them in is cleaning up and tidying the facilities. And also, children should be involved in choosing which toys and equipment they want to use and what kind of order they think is the best way to keep it in.
And don't forget the complaint box, suggestion and complaint box that children can also use, and they can put in drawings or they can have others help them write if they're not able to write themselves about suggestions and complaints they have.
And now we're going to talk about monitoring within a child-friendly space, which is a very important aspect that should never be overlooked. In your workbook, you will see that there's the CFS Monitoring Quality Standards Checklist. This can also be found on page 28 of the operational guidance. What we would like you to do now is to pause the video, and if you're working alone, please read through all the items in the checklist. Contemplate if it would be easy or difficult to fill out this checklist. Also consider who should be assigned to complete the checklist. Would it be one person or more than one? And finally, reflect on ways to ensure that the checklist gets completed and everything is registered when it's done. If you're in a group, follow the same steps by reading through the checklist and then discussing if you feel it would be easy or difficult to complete. Next, discuss who would be assigned to complete the checklist, one person or more, and also discuss as a group any ways to ensure that the checklist gets completed and registered when it's done.
Welcome back. You have looked at the standard checklist, but there are other things that we should do in the daily monitoring. So a prerequisite of completing the monitoring checklist is ensuring that all children sign into and out of the child-friendly space on a daily basis. On page 60 of the operational guidance, you can find more detailed information about registration and attendance, including what data should be collected. Permission from caregivers is also required before children attend the child-friendly space for the first time. We've come to the end of session 3 and also to the end of the introductory training on running a child-friendly space. We hope that you're keen to learn more. There is a list of key materials in the workbook for you to continue your studies.
So the final task for you is to create a plan of what you need to learn more about to be able to run a fun, safe and inclusive child-friendly space. Note this down in your workbooks now individually. Also reflect on your workbooks and any key learnings that you've taken away from this introductory child-friendly space training.
As a final remark, we both want to thank you very much for doing this training with us. Do let us know how your work is going. Write about it on our Facebook page or send us a short story about your child-friendly space.